Not every device needs to look like a flat rectangle. This is the ASUS Flow Z13. It's a 2-in-1, part laptop, part tablet. This particular model is the special edition Kojima Productions model. That's why it looks so awesome. It was designed by Yoji Shinkawa, the character designer behind every Hideo Kojima production since Metal Gear Solid. He is my favorite video game artist. Yes, I have a favorite video game artist, and now I have a laptop he designed. This device was sent to me by ASUS for review. This is a review, not a sponsorship. This is a very expensive laptop. I don't know exactly how expensive it is at the time of writing, but at release, it is $36.99, by the way. $36.99. That's... I was expecting like $3,000. That's already a lot. $36.99. That's insane. I knew those RAM shortages were crazy, but this is insane. Keep this in mind. The whole time I'm making this video, I'm thinking it's around $3,000. I didn't know there was going to be $700 stacked on top of that. So sprinkle that little caveat on top of everything else you see here. I don't accept product as payment, and I don't think receiving this sways any sort of bias in me, but it's important to be transparent in case you think that that might be an issue. I was pretty excited to receive this. I don't know last time I was excited to receive a product for review because it's got Kojima's name on it. And every time he puts his name on something, he knocks it out of the park and super over designs it. And when I heard about this, I was looking up reviews of the older Flow Z13, I guess last year's model, and everyone was saying it's the best Windows device that exists, even among full-fledged Windows laptops. So that got me pretty excited to try this thing out. That's a little bit of a hyperbolic statement. People were just saying it's a really good gaming laptop. But we have one major problem. I'm primarily a Mac user. Yeah, I review a lot of handhelds and PC handhelds and such, but a majority of my work is done on this old 2021 M1 Max MacBook Pro. I haven't turned this thing on in over a week. I just realized that. This cost me $3,500 when I bought it back in 2021. When I travel, I bring a handheld with me, and always, 100% of the time, my MacBook. It's going to be very hard to tear this laptop away from me. I already hear you typing in the comments, handheld guy discovers Windows computers or something. Windows is not foreign to me. I use a Windows desktop to play games and to stream and record video. And I've also played with powerful Windows laptops that are kind of like desktop replacements. They're huge. Obviously, this is way thinner and just as powerful. I like my MacBook because the hardware is kind of amazing. It's super sleek and very powerful. Its fatal flaw is that it cannot play games. In my head, this could be the perfect replacement because it's very portable, very powerful, and can play games. Can this replace all of this? It would make my backpack lighter in a lot of ways, but will it even make it into my backpack in the long run after this review period is over? It depends on how much fun I have playing games like this, but also how practical it is to use for my actual everyday work. One thing's for certain, though, it is the most beautiful laptop I have ever seen in my life. I run the same performance tests on every device that I test. I then put the results in a big Google Sheets document. You can view that document for yourself by just going to wolfdenbenchmarks.com. That's right, I bought a domain for it using this video sponsor, Pork Bun. I also bought wolfdenhandheldtierlist.com, where you can see a tier list of all of the retro handhelds that I've tried based on their launch price. WolfDenEquipmentList.com, where you can see all of the equipment that I use to make these videos. And BobWeHadABabyEatsABoy.com. Remember those ads? I thought that'd be funny to like own that domain. BobWeHadABabyEatsABoy, remember? It's like a 1-800 like collect, like I would be stuck at middle school and I would call my mom on the payphone and they'd be like, what's the name for the call? And I'd say Mom, pick me up. Other domain websites like GoDaddy will sneak in all these fees when you're buying a domain, or they'll try to trick you into buying all these features you don't need. Pork Bun's just like $8.88. Here you go. Just take the domain. Other domain sites will hope you'll forget and try to screw you on the renewal fee. Pork Bun don't give an oink. They'll straight up tell you what it'll renew for. And it's nothing compared to what I pay on these other sites. They also offer free Whois privacy, free SSL certificates, free URL forwarding, which is how I got isboblive.com to go right to my Twitch channel. These are real domains that I have. Host your website on Pork Bun. They got a website builder. You can have your website up and running in a minute. Pork Bun is rated the #1 domain service by Forbes Advisor, USA Today, and me, BobIsLive.com, which is different than IsBobLive.com. I have a lot of domains. Get $1 off of your next domain over at Pork Bun. Click the link in the description below and use the code in the description below. That's code WolfDead26. Get a whole $1 off for yourself. What other domains could I get for myself? My friend Brandon has a GoFundMe for the New York Marathon. GoodLuckBrandon.com. What about like Let's Go Brand? No. It has a kickstand that articulates out really, really far. It is a tablet, so you can manhandle it. There is also an included Kojima-themed keyboard that snaps in. It feels decent enough for a super low-profile laptop keyboard. This keyboard can also be used at an angle. That's pretty comfortable for a tiny little device. However, it is a tablet, so you can't really lap it very well. And there are rubber stoppers on the bottom, but it still kind of feels sharp. I found myself grabbing it with my left hand a lot and navigating the touchscreen with my right hand, which is honestly fine because it's a 2-in-1. So sometimes you got to do both the twos. I just, without even thinking about it, I'm doing both the twos right now. This trackpad is not the best. It requires a decent press to actually click it in. So I rely more on the one tap to like touch click in Windows, which also isn't the best. It makes me want to touch the screen more often than I use the trackpad. There are Kojima themings everywhere. Even when you turn it on, it does a Kojima Productions screech. Even the Armory Crate, ASUS's settings software, is themed. It also comes with this incredibly sick Kojima-themed case. This looks exactly like one of the cargo boxes from Death Stranding. I don't know when I'll actually ever carry the laptop in this, but it is sick as hell. There are also other themed accessories like a mouse pad and a headset, which I feel obligated to talk about because they gave them to me, but it's not really important to me. But the mouse is super cool. I think that this will actually be replacing my normal desk setup mouse. I was recently thinking of recapping my keyboard with something that was similar to this design, so that would fit the theme pretty well. Everything here is so pretty, I almost don't even want to use it at all. But I have to because otherwise that would be a massive waste. So I've got to get my fingerprints all over it, and they're already all over it. We're looking at a pretty beefy device here. It's got an AMD Ryzen AI Max Plus 395 CPU. I don't know what any of that means. And a Radeon 8060S GPU. According to Notebook Check, it's similar in power to a 4070 laptop GPU. Finally, a number that I recognize. It also has an absolutely astounding 128 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM. This is the most RAM I have ever seen in anything in my entire life. In this economy, taking this thing around in your bag is like taking around a couple of bricks of gold in your bag. The gold on the back is fake, but the gold on the inside is that 128 gigabytes of RAM. That one spec raised my expectations of how powerful this thing can be. I thought this thing was going to blow my face off. It is very respectable. I ran a lot of benchmarks. I had to run them at all different types of power profiles because this thing isn't going to perform the same on battery as it would be plugged in, among some other things. This thing performs very well as a laptop. It's still nowhere close to a desktop GPU, but it is way, way better than any handheld that I've ever had. And it's not really a laptop. It's a tablet. All of the goods are in here behind the monitor. It's definitely not like a handheld. It's way more compact than one of those big desktop replacement laptops. And it's also nowhere close to a full-fledged desktop, obviously. So the power being somewhere in between those makes a lot of sense. So this thing is very powerful, and I'm very impressed with what it's capable of for being so tiny. But I do think I got in my head a little bit because I want this to replace my MacBook. So the first thing that I tried to do is something that I do every week, twice a week, is edit a little video in Adobe Premiere in 4K. It went horribly. I happen to use a project with multiple 4K video layers, but still, you'd expect it to run more than 1 frames per second with this much beef behind the screen. I wouldn't mind blaming Adobe for this. This is the only video editing software that I tried. Maybe something else would run better, but this ran so much worse than on my old MacBook that I didn't even bother trying anything else. I would never, ever edit anything on here without proxies ever again. Proxies are when you make lower quality versions of all of the video assets that you have, and then you edit with those. And then right before you're done and want to render everything out, you swap back in the full 4K video files and then render out that way. I'm sure this would be fine working in proxies. This also really isn't indicative of what gaming performance is going to be like on here. Those are two completely different things. I just wanted to show you where my expectations were. And I want to show you because I want to use this thing as like a real computer, not just a gaming machine. I was so excited to get this thing that I bought a $130 pen for it. This is the ASUS Pen 2. I used to be a huge drawing tablet nerd back in my digital illustration days. I had a Microsoft Surface Pro 2 at one point, worst computer I've ever had. But since this is a tablet and it has compatibility with a super accurate pen like this, I thought it'd be cool to relive my heyday. My next work task was to just edit a thumbnail, and doing that, it's pretty great. This pen is very accurate. I didn't do much drawing with it, but I did do some masking, and it works about as good as any pen that I've ever tried. And I've used like $2,000 Cintiq tablets before. Honestly, what I found more compelling about this pen was just using it to navigate around the tablet. Touching the screen with my left hand and using the pen with my right is kind of awesome. I do this everywhere, not just Photoshop, just browsing the internet or navigating around folders or whatever. I like using this pen way more than I like using the trackpad. It's way more intuitive. I just wish there was a place to put this pen. I kind of just put everything in an old laptop sleeve. It all barely fits. My big gripe when using Photoshop on this device was the colors on this LCD display. It is a very nice LCD display. It's 2560 by 1600 and 180 hertz. That's pretty great for a 13-inch laptop. There's no complaints there with those specs. The LCD panel is also among the best I've seen. It kind of reminds me a lot of the quality that I got in the Lenovo Legion Go S screen. LCD panels, believe it or not, they can be very good sometimes. I would have loved for this to have been an OLED panel, but I also wouldn't have liked for people to spend another couple of $100s on this already expensive device. I think the blacks are deep enough here where it really doesn't matter that much. This display is also great for playing games. Colors look great, dynamic range looks great. Refresh rate and resolution on this tiny 13-inch display is also great. Everything's great there. The color is just a little weird for live action content. It's as if it thinks HDR is on, but it can't process HDR correctly or something. Skin tones lose like a little bit of their contrast, and they err towards the pink and purple hues. It seems like there's just not a lot of dynamic range when watching content on here. Again, playing games is totally fine. Everything's totally fine playing games. For some reason, the colors look good there. But if you're gonna be watching any live action content, that can be a problem. It's especially a problem if you make videos for a living. I basically can't color correct any images on here at all. I also noticed this while docked to a monitor. So it doesn't feel like a hardware thing. I think it's a driver thing. It needs to be calibrated or something. Please update this for us content creators, please. This has 2 USB 4 ports, so I was able to plug it into my little docking station that I use for my MacBook. I will admit, aside from my color issues, having it plugged in and using it as like a drawing tablet was pretty goddamn sweet. It can also charge from one of the USB-C ports. It can only take in 100 watts of charging, which is enough for like most usage, even just Photoshop. I just wouldn't charge this thing via USB-C while playing a game in like turbo mode. It's not going to be fast enough charging to keep up with the battery usage there. For that, you'll want the included power brick, which also has Kojima branding on it. This is one of the smaller bricks that I've seen for a Windows laptop, but it's still cumbersome compared to a MacBook charger. Look at how tiny this thing is. But when I travel lately, honestly, I'm just bringing a USB-C power brick with me. The trip I just went on, I brought a 100-watt Ugreen charger. That was enough for the whole trip. I charged the laptop with just this 100-watt brick, and it was totally fine. I try not to use this while it was charging, and I kept my battery-powered gameplay sessions relatively short. So I really had no problems with that. I have no complaints there. In the future, if I travel with this, I'm still just bringing a 100-watt USB charger. I played a couple of games on here just at my leisure. I bought one of these controllers. I don't know how to say this company's name. It looks a lot like that 8-bit do Lite that I like so much. But this one has the thumbsticks inset. It's pretty good. It's not the most comfortable controller, but I bought it for the convenience, and it fits right into my little laptop sleeve, so it worked out pretty well for me. I played the replaced demo on here, and that was pretty great. It ran fine, but that's not really testing this thing's abilities. I also played Demon Tides, which was getting around 80 frames per second using the performance mode on battery power, and that also ran great. You might remember that game from PAX East last year where I demoed it. It's out now. So if you like platformers, there you go. You got a new platformer. Honestly, it wasn't too bad using this controller. And that's just kind of what I felt like playing. I was just using this thing normally without thinking too hard about testing this thing or doing any benchmarks or anything. And it felt pretty great. Just chilling with this thing. Just vibing. We're reviewing this thing off vibes, dude. But for benchmarking this thing, we had to wait till I got home to plug this thing in with its charger to get the most performance out of here. There are 4 different performance modes. There's silent, there's performance, and those 2 are the only ones that you're gonna get on battery power. Then, once it's plugged in with the included charger, you're gonna get turbo mode, and you can tinker around and do manual, which is basically overclocking this thing.
Manual could also work on battery. Don't expect much battery life with that, though.
You can use manual to raise the TDP all the way up. I also boosted the fan curves a lot so this thing doesn't explode. The fans are almost inaudible in silent and even in performance mode, which is really all that you need. But then when you hit turbo mode and then, of course, manual mode, then you start to hear the fans. Even then, the noise levels are kind of just fine. I've heard much worse in other modern devices. I even have a Charge portable battery that has a fan in it, and that fan was louder than this thing when I was playing games in performance mode. In manual mode, you can use up to 80 watts of TDP. That's the most that you can set it to, and that's kind of a lot for a portable device. It can use up to 93 watts, but I've never seen it go up even close to 80 at all, honestly. So if you plugged in, this thing can get pretty beefy. These are all the 3D Mark scores of all the different performance modes. I tested silent and performance both on battery power. Silent gets pretty damn low. It's pulling 35 watts like a PC handheld does. So it's interesting. The performance is pretty in line with the PC handheld. Obviously, the higher performance modes are a little more than what a PC handheld would get. I'll also note that you're not getting much battery life on here when you're playing games. When I was just writing the script and like navigating around the internet and like watching videos and stuff, I was getting between like 6 to 8 hours of battery life, maybe a little more, which I think is pretty fantastic. I kind of just leave it in performance mode when it's on battery power. Like right now, you can't hear it at all. It just knows that I'm just in a Google Doc, so maybe don't run the fans too crazy. Playing a game on here in performance mode, you're looking at around like 2 hours of battery life. That's kind of what I was expecting. It's not terrible, but it's not like amazing. It also means that I can't do a lot of high-powered work on here on battery power, like video editing. That's only going to net me around 2 hours, maybe even less. This M1 MacBook Pro has spoiled me for battery life. The battery life on this thing is like insane. Anyway, I spent a really long time talking about like lifestyle and work stuff on here. Why don't we talk about actual games and how they perform on here? All of the tests that you're going to see here are going to be run plugged in at full manual mode with all the settings cranked all the way to the max, unless I specify otherwise. Resident Evil 4 looked pretty great at full resolution on this screen. I was getting between 105 and 120-ish frames per second during some action. I think this defaulted to having some in-game settings on high because this thing can handle it. Side note, is it me or is it just way easier to aim with an actual controller versus holding a whole handheld in your hand? Dropping the resolution to 1200p shot the FPS up to around 138 frames per second. When you lower the resolution in any game, AMD Super Resolution kicks on, which is like an AI upscaling. And honestly, looks pretty good here. So I'm just gonna leave that on. This thing has some sort of AI super chip in here. So we gotta use that for something. So why not just use it for like super resolution or frame gen or something? None of these tests are gonna have frame gen on it. But if I was just playing around by myself, I might dabble around with a little frame gen. At full resolution in Resident Evil, dropping this thing down to performance mode, which is the most power we could get on battery, that got me around 100 frames per second, which still really isn't bad. Note that this game just recently updated to change their anti-theft software from De Novo to Enigma, and everyone's reporting significantly worse performance than before. So even though these are the highest numbers that you'll see in this chart here, they don't really matter. It probably would have been higher with the last update. Also, it just feels really silly to compare this laptop to PC handhelds. That's just all of the stuff that I've reviewed in the past. I don't really review laptops. PC handhelds are significantly smaller and much lower performing devices by design. They're designed to be the most efficient they can be. So I guess we'll ignore the chart and I'll just put the FPS ratings on the screen. If you want to see the performance compared to other PC handles, go to wolfdenbenchmarks.com like we talked about before. Neon White fluctuated pretty wildly between 220 and 260 frames per second. It feels very good. This is another game that shouldn't really be a point of comparison because I've been using Neon White to benchmark Android phones. It's funny for me to see such a high frame rate right now is in this game is all. Okay, I have to start treating this thing like it's a gaming PC and less like a handheld. So let's use some games that I actually play a lot on my desktop. Valorant, I was getting between the high 300s and the mid 400s. This is only a little lower than I would get on my desktop PC at the same resolution. Although now I've decided I hate AMD fluid motion frames. Look at how these player icons jitter as the AI engine takes its time to upscale the image as it moves. This looks awful. I closed the game and immediately turned that off. Now, when I move the camera around, there's a little tiny dip in the frame rate, but that's really not an issue at all. It's still well in the high 200s and stays in the high 300s most of the time. I would never want to play ranked on this thing, though. It's way too small. It's too tiny. I can't do it. Another game I play on PC a decent amount is Marvel Rivals. Leave the in-game super resolution on, or else your frame rate will take a massive hit. I'm getting about 100 frames per second in the training area, which drops to under 70 frames per second when opening a portal. The benchmark test gave me 81 frames per second. This runs and looks great. This is something I'd have no problem playing on here. Even ranked, I would probably just want a better mouse. This mouse sucks way worse for competitive gaming than I ever anticipated. Some $10 Amazon mouse I got for a past video. You know what it was? I had Bluetooth turned on with that mouse. It has a 2.4 gigahertz dongle. That probably would have been better. Cyberpunk defaulted to having low ray tracing. I set super resolution to balanced in the game, but left everything else default. This got me around 50 frames per second. It feels way smoother than just 50 frames per second. I swear I couldn't hit a thing though. I don't know what that's about. I think what's most impressive here are the load times. Everything on this laptop loads so much quicker than what I'm used to. The benchmark tests got me 49 frames per second, but dropping it down to the Steam Deck setting got me 87 on the benchmark. That's a little better. And finally, we gotta do Death Stranding on this thing. Death Stranding doesn't do 16:10, which is interesting because this is a Kojima branded device that has a 16:10 screen. But at default settings, I was getting between 90 and 110 frames per second, just walking around. It runs very, very well here. I've just completely forgotten how to play this game, and I have 2 weeks to beat it before the new one comes to PC? So obviously, this is a very capable gaming device. The performance that you get is very reasonable for the price that you're paying, which is a decent amount, but the form factor that you're getting could make you seriously underestimate this thing. If you're a Windows user looking for a really compact gaming laptop with a little more flexibility, like a tablet, this thing's amazing. It is also, again, the coolest looking Windows device I've ever seen. I'm primarily a Mac guy. I use Windows just for gaming. So am I going to be able to consolidate all of this? I think I actually might. I just got back from Florida. I was there for a week. Everybody wish my dad a happy 75th birthday. Thank you. I did not bring my MacBook or a handheld PC gaming device at all. I just brought this. It never once felt like a compromise. Granted, I didn't have to do any video editing, so that might have changed my perspective a little bit if I had to do some actual work. Gaming was actually better on here than it would have been if I brought a PC handheld. This thing is smaller than even just my MacBook alone, so my backpack felt really extra super light this time around. I actually had room in my luggage for the first time in years. I did manage to transfer some photos around. I missed having a dedicated full-sized SD card slot, but I always bring an SD card reader, so that didn't really bother me that much. I did use the touchscreen to move the files around, which felt a little weird at first. I missed AirDrop a little bit, but I just used Dropbox, and believe it or not, I survived. It was kind of cool using this as a tablet without a keyboard for those use cases. Sometimes when I'm manhandling it, the keyboard feels weird, just flopping around a little bit, but you can just remove it. And it feels kind of cool just using it like a tablet without the keyboard. This trackpad is bad. I've never met a Windows device with a good trackpad. Why does it always have to take so much force to click? The MacBook trackpad is just goated. Windows is also horrible. So many pop-ups. Setting up Windows is just ad after ad. No, I can't use the Game Pass free trial because I already have Game Pass and I don't want to give you my credit card information again. No, I don't want to use fucking McAfee. Didn't he go to jail or get assassinated or something? So there's some trade-offs for my use cases. But I think the verdict here is that this might actually be replacing my 4-ish-year-old MacBook for a lot of trips. I don't really do a lot of editing on the go, and if I really need to, I could just use proxies, and that'll be totally fine. The amount of space this thing saves me is worth dealing with Windows, I think. It's really not that bad. The device is powerful and efficient enough to handle everything that I need to throw at it, with the exception of video editing. The battery life compromise also isn't really that egregious. 6 to 8 hours when I'm just writing a script or navigating the web or looking at files, that's totally fine. The trackpad is bad, but I can always just touch the screen, and that feels good. It's a little flimsy and not very lappable, but it is versatile in other ways. And once again, it is the coolest looking laptop I have ever seen. So I guess I'm a Windows guy now. We'll see how long I stick to that, though. Because GameHub is about to work on Mac, baby. Let's f***ing go. So what do you guys think about the ASUS Z Flow 13, or more importantly, this beautiful Kojima model? This is not something that you want to just buy because it looks cool, or something that you want to buy to toy around with. This is like a lifestyle choice. Buying a laptop is like a huge investment. It has to fulfill a lot of your needs if you're going to be spending that much money on it. So yeah, I would never want to spend, again, I don't know how much this thing is, but I'm going to assume it's going to be around $3,000. Was I right? $36.99. That's insane. I would never want to spend $3,000-ish on just a gaming device. That's insane. I need way more out of it, which is why I spent a lot of time doing a lot of other things on here and not just gaming. Anyway, leave it in the comments below. Add me on Twitter, any and all of your other social media garbage. We stream pretty often on twitch.tv/WulffDen and also youtube.com/WulffDen podcasts. Go watch the podcast, please. We got podcast patrons scrolling on the bottom of the screen. Of course, the most important thing you can do is make sure it says that you're subscribed. I hope you're not clicking on my videos just because you see them on your homepage. You gotta hit the subscribe button. And share this video with a friend who maybe is in the market for a new laptop. Maybe they have an old, crusty MacBook like me. Thank you for, this thing's actually a very nice MacBook. It's held up pretty well. Goodbye, have a good week.